Slot needs to choose. Either commit to the refashioning of Liverpool or dial it back and start again, whether he sticks or twists, effectively.
Stick or twist. Stick or twist.
Rude or Dutch.
We back like the Denver Broncos, and what did we just witness? Anfield turning from believers into doubters. A signature victory for Ruben Amorim, the human beauty of Harry Maguire redemption. Arsenal missionary position their way to glory, but the result felt tantric. Ange Postecoglu last the Scaramucci in Nottingham, a city where I do believe the next No King's March is going to be Marinakis size. Chelsea red card, dead hard. Newcastle Voltamard, Crystal Palace and Bournemouth. Game of the weekend, this league. And to unpack it all, a joy to glimpse my friend in pod, the Bard of Harrogate, the Welbeck of words. Hey up, Mr. Rory Smith.
Yeah, joy is a quality that's in short supply in these parts at the moment, Rog. Bad weekend for Leeds, bad weekend for Liverpool.
Oh, mate, I got to tell you, other people's pain and suffering is, well, really the only thing I get out of bed for. Let's start with the big question of the week, though. I love this from great friend of the pod, at Karen Stefan, who asked, who'll be the next Duke of York? Will it be Rory now it's available?
Not a title that I want, thank you very much. It feels like that one might need to go. Maybe needs a bit of a rebrand, that particular little part of the royal family.
It's hard to be the man who follows the man, isn't it?
You don't want to be the Arne Slot to Prince Andrew's Jurgen Klopp.
Oh my God, well, let's move on. We do have so much, please. We got so much football to get to, but we would be remiss if we didn't touch upon the biggest story globally in the international break. A headline from the BBC, no less. I'm not making this up. It's, I kept York's last batch of Terry's chocolate oranges for 20 years. It was a lead story in Britain. It's a story of how Terry's of York, it's been founded in the city in 1767, was closed down by Kraft Foods, boo, in 2005. And one HR guy there, Ian Bradshaw, beautiful photo of him, very proudly lifting up the 12 unboxed Terry's chocolate oranges that he's kept from that time unopened ever since. It was presented back to the company, I believe, last week, as if he was like giving them the Turin Shroud or the Ark of the Covenant. Well, ultimately, this is a podcast about two know-nothings football-wise, but we do live for Terry's chocolate orange. We are passionistas. So this story was for us, I think, chocolate fruit porn, right? So care to comment?
Well, I would say that if you gave me 12 chocolate oranges for 20 years, the idea that they would remain unopened is extraordinary. And it's such an unfamiliar sensation of not opening a chocolate orange that I don't really know how to feel about it. I don't know whether this man loves chocolate oranges or hates them.
Yeah, I think having worked in the factory and having to smell them all the time, it's a bit like working in the Wonka factory. At a certain point, you get tired of the chocolate river. You get tired of life. The article notes, by the way, that the Terry's chocolate orange, I did not know this. As someone that lives and nibbles at the one you got me last Christmas, I eat a little third every night. They're now made in France, Raw. Did they move over the entire chocolate orange grove? Is that how it works?
I believe the trees that grow the chocolate oranges were shifted to a more temperate climate, yeah.
At GFOP, we also got a raven from Jack Height, who noted that he has encountered a new flavour of chocolate orange, mint chocolate orange. He wrote, yeah. Rory, how is this shocking development being received in England?
Non-canon. The mint chocolate orange, the chocolate mint, is non-canon. I don't mind. There are two varietals actually, they're a fruit, that I approve of. One is popping candy for the kids, and the other is with little bits of toffee and crunchy toffee, which actually is an improvement to the already perfect chocolate orange. But if you stop it being orange, it makes no sense. It's as though your eyes and your brain and your tastes are out of whack. It throws reality itself into question.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe we rioted when the Super League was announced, but we're going to let them take a chocolate orange and turn it to mint. Just ask yourself the basic question. If you went to the supermarket and asked for oranges and they just gave you some mint, would you go home and feel happy? No. I just don't understand how it works, Ro.
There's no vitamin C in chocolate mint, whereas chocolate orange is rife with vitamin C.
By the way, I eat a chocolate orange every night and I have not had scurvy yet. There is a connection, Raw. We used to have an empire. Now it's just the Premier League. I want to start by raising my third first Michelob Ultra of the day to Cape Verde, the volcanic archipelago of islands, the size of Sheffield, who will become the second smallest nation ever to qualify for the World Cup. They will be in the United States next summer. A historic moment for the former Portuguese colony population. I think it's around 525,000, same size as Mesa, Arizona. I think only Iceland, beautiful Iceland in 2018 was smaller. Their domestic top flight features 12 teams. The Federação Cabo Verdeana de Football, their federation was founded just in 1982, and they've gone about strengthening its teams by going around the diaspora of Cape Verde players across Europe. Incredible story. Defender Roberto Lopez, who plays for mighty Shamrock Rovers in the League of Ireland, was located and identified via LinkedIn. God bless. They beat Cameroon along the way in qualifying. They will be a joyful collective. The Tubarões Azuis, excuse my Portuguese, the Blue Sharks, watching their nation's joy in their 50th year of independence at the World Cup, will be a delight. It gave me an overwhelming sense of lift this week. I don't know about you, Roy. They are all that's good about football and the World Cup.
Yeah, I love these stories. And for Cape Verde, who've been coming, to be honest, they've started to kind of qualify for AFCONs in the last 10, 12 years, performing well. You've seen them kind of grow as a force. But it kind of shows what being at the World Cup means. I think that's why these stories really kind of linger and why they stay with you. Because once the tournament starts, it's kind of about who's going to win it and who's going to get sacked for not winning it. That's the two things the World Cup is designed to kind of prove. But qualification isn't about England or Germany or Spain or France. It's about nations like Cape Verde, for whom being at the party is the party. And to see what happened in Praia last week when they made it against Eswatini, having kind of looked like they might just fall at the last, the celebration, the jubilation is really hard not to feel uplifted by it.
Yeah, we taped with Joel Embiid during the game for a show that's coming out in a moment, who was living and dying with Cameroon. But even he felt a joy in his heart for Cape Verde and Godspeed. They're kind of like watching that. It's the same cut from the same cloth as Crystal Palace's FA Cup glory last season. Okay, quick note before we begin. This is a big Champions League week, European football forever. And when the Tournament of Kings returns to our TVs this week, come join Men in Blazers Discord channel. Be with us. I'll be there with all of you, commenting, laughing along, reacting in real time. Honestly, the joy of my week, the joy of my weekend past, to be with you in game, happily, safely, chatting away. Makes it feel like you're in the best packed pub in the world, even if you're still there just on your couch. It's completely free to join. Sign up in the show notes on YouTube or in the podcast below. And look out for European nights dropping tomorrow with King Roar. To the football, let's start with, surely this is a typo. Liverpool 1, Manchester United 2. Raw, let's go back before kickoff, because the only thing we knew going into this, two great Northwestern giants, one of them was going to spend the week in that tabloid free-fall spin cycle buzzsaw of the team trademarking crisis. Those are high stakes. And remember, I'm old enough to look back to a time when we awarded Liverpool this title after, was it 5 games? They were 5 points ahead. Now it felt like they could not afford to slip or drop a point. And for all their darkness, they knew they were at Anfield. They'd not lost there this season, had not lost in over a year. United hadn't won on the road since March, but this, we knew also exactly the kind of game that they would step up for and had proved themselves to themselves almost by winning on the ground where they hadn't won in nearly a decade. So a lot of wheels within wheels there, Raw. Take us back. How did you feel? What were the vibes in the Smith House pre-game?
Well, yesterday afternoon, Rog, on Sunday afternoon, we went to Cartwright Hall in Bradford, which is an old kind of art gallery, really beautiful park in Bradford, which is not the richest city in Britain, but it's showcasing the 4 nominees for the Turner Prize, which is Britain's foremost visual arts prize.
Named after one of the great substitute goalkeepers of all time.
Named for Matt Turner, correct.
Yes. Great picture of the art.
It just loves modern visual arts. And some really famous kind of paintings, or not even paintings, but famous installations have won the Turner Prize. Damien Hirst won it for the Sliced Up Cows. I think he won it or was nominated for the Diamond Skull. That one was one of them as well. This year's entrants, all very impressive, varied in kind of techniques and style and stuff. But the one that my kids liked the most was the one that is like an immersive installation about being in the ocean in an alternate world with lots of whale song playing and these really striking, bold notes of colour. The floor's like the shimmering gold, so you can see your reflection. It's really kind of an all-encompassing 360-degree piece of art. I really liked it. My kids loved it. And I mainly liked it because I wanted to stay in there instead of watching Liverpool play Manchester United, because I liked that alternate reality much better.
What, being in a whale's stomach?
Just, it was like being kind of simultaneously underwater, but it was very shiny. But crucially, in that room, Liverpool were not playing Manchester United, because I hate that fixture. I can't stand it. It stresses me out. And to be perfectly honest, I had a bad feeling, which fortunately I'm in a position, Rog, to I think have expressed in public. So I have the receipts, as people say these days. United are set up to play Liverpool. United, for all their problems under Amorim, for all their kind of volatile form, their patchiness, their inability, particularly against teams who kind of sit there and wait for them to attack. United went to Anfield last season and got a 2-2 draw, and they did it by going long. They went long and direct, and Arne Slot mentioned it afterwards. I think his comments were taken as being quite sour. I'm not sure they were meant like that, to be perfectly honest. I think sometimes Arne Slot is just Dutch, and he just says what he sees.
That sounds like a great quiz game. Rude or Dutch?
Rude or Dutch would be an amazing quiz game.
Yeah.
But Slot
sometimes
said...
two things can be true, but go on.
Slot said after that game in January, they sat deep and they played it long. And that's exactly what United did. And I don't know whether he was reading like a making a judgment on the validity of that tactic. But there's no question that it worked and it stuck with him. He mentioned it a few times in the subsequent weeks.
Well, he might have talked about it, but he didn't do very much about it, did he, Ro?
He didn't, but this is the thing. I think the way that United set up generally, and especially the way that Amorim set things up at Anfield yesterday, is made to exploit the obvious weaknesses that Liverpool have shown both in that run where they were winning games and the run where they're losing games. So I always go into that fixture preferring generally to be in an alternate reality based around Wales song. But particularly yesterday, given where Liverpool were, what they were doing, given the slight uptick in form for United in recent weeks as well, thinking this does not end happily for Liverpool. They might get away with a draw, but United, for all their weakness, Anfield to me felt like promising territory for them.
Well, in that case, with that very drab dower, deeply, I mean, even I'm a king of pessimists. Even I doff my cap to you Dart Lord. In your world, Liverpool did well to hold out as long as they did.
Oh, heroic.
I know, it was an entire 62 seconds. This backline had already conceded 9 goals this season, playing a Shesko-less United, no less. Within 62 seconds, Van Dijk and Mbeumo sandwiched Paul McAllister, went down with a head injury, which the referee Michael Oliver did not see. Mbeumo snapped up off the floor like the Undertaker meme. Ball immediately broke down the flank, threw a mad, and then Mbeumo brilliantly put on the afterburners. Like his reading of that situation, knowing who was there, who would not be there, just ran into space. Real intelligence, astonishing to witness. It was a bit like, don't like to be hyperbolic, but the Visigoths sack in Rome. Slipped in, finished through the goalkeeper, and my God, Liverpool were like, in that moment, if you had told me Liverpool made a deal with the devil, like Robert Johnston, and the devil was calling time in that moment, I wouldn't have been surprised.
But it's also the way that it changed the game, and Amorim spoke about this afterwards, that it turned it into a game on United's terms. Manchester United didn't want to come to Anfield and try and dominate possession. They didn't want to dictate the game. They wanted Liverpool to be forced to take risks, to come out at them so that they could sit there, perfectly validly, and play direct and take advantage of the space Liverpool left in behind. The worst thing Liverpool could do, given the circumstances coming into the game and the nature of the opponents, was concede early. And yet here we were, 66 seconds in, something like that, and they were 1-0 down.
Yeah, God, hats off to Brian Mbeumo. Incredibly, 18 Premier League goals he's been involved in this calendar year. If we care about calendar year stats, only Haaland and Mo Salah have had more. Dude scored at Anfield, say the meme lords, before Alexander Isak scored at Anfield. But the good news for Liverpool was they had practically the entire game to find their way back. The response was fascinating to witness. It was like fight or flight time every time they were on the ball. It was like actually a dance-off of post hitting. I think Gakpo began wrapping the post, but it easily could have been 2-0. Bruno missed a shot from the edge of the box and Mark clipped the outside of the woodwork. A Gakpo deflected cross, then pinged off the back post too. Isak let Schmeichel in disguise his lemons shut down his first one-on-one. It even for a neutral, and I use that word lightly, it was honestly hard to watch. It was joyless, it was mirthless, there was high stress, felt like very, very existential football at Anfield, the energy. And it was an edgy atmosphere at Anfield too, Raw. To paraphrase Jurgen Klopp, it was as if the fans were being turned from believers into doubters.
Yeah, and I think that's because of what they've seen, not just in the games leading up to this, of the defeats at Palace and Chelsea and in Istanbul against Galatasaray, but what they'd seen even when Liverpool were winning games at the start of the season, that there has been a patchiness to Liverpool. There have been moments where they look great, and there have been long stretches where they really don't. And I think the crowd generally at Anfield now isn't as confident as they were last season. Last season, I think there was as there had been for long periods under Klopp, there was a feeling that you go to Anfield and generally it's quite a happy place. You're probably going to win. Whereas now all of a sudden you're not quite sure what you're going to get. And that's bad enough in normal circumstances, but in the one game that more than any other you really want to win, it makes it very stressful.
Yeah, I mean, it was astonishing to witness watching Liverpool struggle at Anfield, a goal down to Manchester United. It was going back to the future, any time between 1992 and 2013. All three parts of Liverpool's setup, their front three, the midfield, the back line, none felt fully calibrated. None felt like they were functioning with confidence. Half-time, it continued. Gakpo came on, hit the woodwork for a third time, a fantastic turn and thrash. We joked in the Men in Blazers slat that United's best three defenders all time. Number 1, Rio Ferdinand. Number 2, Vidic. Number 3, The Post at Anfield, October 2025. Mo Salah then missed with the goal begging, did not even hit the target, substituted before the end. He is in a rough patch of form where the basics are not coming easy to him right now. I do believe, and we'll talk about the end, about the many challenges that Slot has to manage his way out of. This is chief amongst them for me. Just Mo's current lack of form, front three changed. No Jota, no Luis Diaz, even Darwin Núñez, who he was familiar with. Trent behind him, gone. Soboslai, who used to probe right behind him, Hungarian now from playing at right back. It's a completely different reality that he's operating and struggling in.
Yeah, he looks really diminished, Salah, and I think it would be ridiculous to kind of assume that over the course of the summer he's forgotten how to play football. It's clearly to do with the chemical bonds that make up the team. But he looks diminished. All of the Liverpool players look diminished, with maybe the exception of Soboslai, who I think has been their standout player this season. There is an uncertainty in, as you said, in each of those areas of the team, defence, midfield and attack, and an uncertainty between all of those areas of the team. And Salah's not immune to that. He's not the sort of player, I'm not sure he's ever been the sort of player who would get a game by the scruff of the neck and settle it by kind of dictating play. That's never been what Mo Salah does. He's a player for moments, certainly in the last couple of years. But those moments aren't really being generated. Certainly not in the volume they used to be, which means when one does come, he's hurried and rushed and harassed and stressed. And so he's less effective. He doesn't look like the kind of cool, composed player he was last season or has been for most of the last 7-8 years. He looks like he's worried and a little bit frantic, just like the rest of his team.
Yeah, and one other attacking piece that we have to quickly discuss, which is Alexander Isak, did not connect to whatever cohesive vision Liverpool were trying to apply. The style of play doesn't seem to fit in with his high-speed demands. Substituted on, was it 72 minutes? Slot had said before the game that Isak has had his 5 to 6 weeks of pre-season, so fitness-wise, he's close to the level he should be. We can judge him in a fair way from now on. How should we judge him right now, Will?
Probably not that positively, and I suspect Slot might regret saying that, to be honest.
Dutch or rude.
Dutch or rude. Hosted by Rude Hullet, who's both Dutch and rude.
It's actually a very funny man, Rude Hullet.
This is a great pitch for a game show, though, Rog. We'll workshop this.
By the way, we shouldn't have talked about it publicly.
No, someone will take it.
Yeah, it'll be ripped off in a
Come
heartbeat.
on, the streamers, they're going to be all over that. They'll do anything for content. I think you have to... You can't say Salah looks diminished and it's because of the failures of the team in one breath, and then say, well, it's all Alexander Isak's fault in the next. That would be hypocritical. You have to allow him the same grace period, I guess. Like, he's in a team that isn't working properly. That's the issue with Liverpool. Team doesn't work properly. Therefore, Isak is, to an extent, feeding on scraps. Yes, there have been chances. Obviously, there was one yesterday against United. There was certainly one against Galatasaray. There was certainly one against Crystal Palace. I can't quite remember against Chelsea. But, he's had chances to score goals that, as harsh as it sounds, a striker who costs that much money should probably score. I don't think that the price tag is weighing on Alexander Isak. But I do wonder if the manner in which he left Newcastle is. I wonder if he is feeling the pressure of having had to take such extreme measures to get out of Newcastle that he now knows it kind of has to work. He has to deliver. He almost had to deliver by hitting the ground running. He's not done that. But it looks to me like he's also playing with quite a lot of stress on his shoulders.
Regrets. I've had a few. But let's get into the misdirection. That footballing Care Bear Chiesa came on. He actually for Isak, and he was a spark. Liverpool moved to 4 up top. Cue a scrum in the United area. I did think about you ahead of the Liverpool goal. It's like classic under-7 football. You must have been very proud as one of England's leading under-7 football coaches. Just a honeypot of players hacking away. But then the Italian drove a diabolical diagonal across the box. And God bless Gakpo. Actually tried his best to hit the woodwork again with the angle. But the relief, the joy, the narrative flipping from terror to surging confidence in that moment. When you watch that goal again, just the reaction of everyone. Felt in that moment, Raw, there could only be one winner, right?
Well, yeah, because we've seen this story before. That's what happens. Liverpool get one back, and then they get a sort of ill-deserved winner, or maybe not ill-deserved, but the fine margins fall in Liverpool's favour. That's what we've become accustomed to seeing, not just this season, but for quite a long time. That if someone needs a late goal at Anfield, it tends to go to Liverpool. The one thing I would say, just a quick side note on Chiesa, Rog, is you obviously wouldn't say, given that Liverpool have Mohamed Salah, Alexander Isak, Hugo Ekitike, and then like a notch below maybe Cody Gakpo, it would be absurd to say Federico Chiesa should be starting games. But he's the only one, maybe him and Ekitike, the only ones of Liverpool's attackers who look like they've got a bit of conviction about them at the moment. Federico Chiesa is not as smooth as Salah, he's not as good as Salah, he's not as creative or as inventive as Salah, clearly, does Mohamed Salah. But Chiesa looks like he's going onto the pitch with a point to prove and a bit of belief, which in itself is maybe not a bad trait, to be perfectly honest. Also,
nothing to lose, man, at this point. He's just the cuddly Chiesa. I'm still here. Also, whenever they cut to the bench, the other player, I'm not being funny, it's Rio. I'm old enough to remember when Rio was 16 and trundled on with joy and wonder. Didn't know what he didn't know, was fearless, cut opponents apart. Now they cut to him on the bench. I think he's like 28. Yet to really take a grip. I mean, obviously it would be terrible man management to inject a young, raw 16-year-old into this moment of deep existential angst, Raw, but,
Well, at the same time, maybe it's... yes, it is, Rog. That's absolutely right. It would be irresponsible to do that, be asking far too much of Under Moa. But I think the argument that what Liverpool need is the players on the pitch who can kind of look like they might make a difference, I think is probably not wrong. Because Salah and Isak in particular don't. And at some point, and it might be against Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League this week, maybe you say, look, actually, we do have a squad that we can use. We do have other options, and here they are.
We knew, this being Anfield, as you said, that there had to be contractually a late goal. What we had no idea about, just 6 minutes later, it would be from, well, first, Manchester United, and second, Harry Maguire. I would say Amorim did know when he selected him. Too much mirth as a starter for this game, but corner slot recycled by a quite stunningly impotent, brazen first-time volley cross from Bruno. And met, I've got to say, with guile by an unmarked Harry Maguire. I think John Champion hailed it as the broad forehead of Harry Maguire. Just a fadeaway with which he finished, and then he reeled away to the United fans. I've watched that as many times as I've watched the goal. Wonder what that must have felt like to be so often a meme of a human being, a humiliated punchline of a player. Here, though, a hammer in a massive moment, humanly remarkable to witness, honestly, with the United travelling fan base losing his mind. He pumped his fists over and over in Anfield. So victorious. I could almost hear the Foo Fighters, "There Goes My Hero," playing in his imagination as he celebrated.
Even as an embittered Liverpool fan, Rog, in my rational, cooler-minded moments, it's really hard to begrudge Harry Maguire these kind of days, these kind of goals, these kind of instances, because there can't be many players who have repeatedly been told by their club manager, "Actually, you're not good enough for us. We're moving on from you. We're better than you. We need defenders who can do this, that, or the other. Who are Dutch or French or younger or more skillful or quicker." United, I think, have tried to sell him or made him available for sale 2 or 3 times at least. And in a lot of people's eyes, Harry Maguire has, at various times, kind of come to represent a lot of the ills of the modern Manchester United. The vast fee that they paid for him, his lack of suitability for the type of football that certain managers wanted to play. And yet, there's not many players who seem to have quite as many big moments, big decisive moments as Maguire. And he keeps coming back. He is put up for sale or told that he's not starting or stripped of the captaincy. And then 6 weeks later, he will be back in the team. He is kind of indomitable in a way that's really, really hard not to admire.
It's that. You kind of make him sound like a footballing floaty to some degree, but it is about perseverance. It really is about endurance. It is about tenacity. And it is about just seeing a human being who has suffered for long spells have a truly transcendent moment where we all experience even a fraction of that joy in our lifetime. Gakpo missed a point-blank header before the end, but that was that. Manchester United, first signature win for Ruben Amorim. First victory in just under 10 years at Anfield, which is incredible. All these statistics are incredible. Back-to-back wins won in the league by Amorim for the first time. It's taken him 51 games to meet that mark. Over the break, Sir Jim Ratcliffe talked about how Ruben Amorim was going to get 3 years to rebuild. A lot of question marks when he said that. But right there, the big result, the big calls for the manager all worked out. Casemiro and Bruno in midfield together. The lack of strikers, out-and-out strikers in the starting lineup was a good call. Maguire, so dominant, imperious. Lemons in goal was strong when challenged. So much that was great about this game from a United perspective. I think the last time they won, Wayne Rooney was the goal scorer. Louis van Gaal, God bless, was the manager. For me, the defensive determination was truly impressive, but even more so was the mentality to grab the winner. Raw, when Liverpool had just equalised, when Anfield had roared, when it believed again, to take that punch on the chin and be the one to rise up and deliver the knockout punch. That's how we remember the United of old. It's also how United fans yearn to self-imagine again.
Yeah, that's, I think, what was most impressive was the fact that they scored early. Liverpool kind of battered the door down to an extent in that second half in particular. And at that point, United, given all they've been through, given all the scars they must have, not just from kind of Amorim's first year or so, but from the last 5-10 years, whatever it might be, you kind of expect United to wilt. But they didn't. They stood up and they came again, and they committed players forward. They kept getting into the box. They kept making chances. They kept trying to attack Liverpool, to exploit those gaps that Liverpool were leaving in their pursuit of the winner. And they got their reward. And that there was no reason yesterday to begrudge them that. From a neutral perspective, obviously personally I begrudge them enormously, but from a neutral perspective, that was what United deserved for that performance.
Neutral right here. I can co-sign. I use the word neutral incredibly loosely there. By the way, no European football for United either, to be troubled by, distracted by, exhausted by. I will just say, them becoming competitive again, we're some ways from really seeing that true run, but them becoming competitive again under Ruben Amorim would be the loudest story of the season, no matter what.
Yeah, and do you know what, Roger? If you looked at the underlying numbers, there is something stirring at Manchester United. Their XG for and against has been kind of ticking upwards for a while. Results have been iffy at times this season as well. But I think we can start to see what Ruben Amorim wants Manchester United to look like, what he wants them to be. They're still uneven. You still have players sort of crammed into positions that don't particularly suit them. I don't think they're in a position to challenge Arsenal or Manchester City for the title. But they are, without question, improving. And as you say, Ruben Amorim doesn't have to think about Europe. He's cleverly got himself knocked out of the Carabao Cup. He
Slapped by the fish.
Slapped by the fish in Grimsby, who might well win the Carabao Cup. It may well be that that's not such a humiliation if Grimsby don't win it. But he's got these 3 weeks to work on his system, to work with his players, which is not something that any other team really in the top 10 of the Premier League has. That is a huge edge for Manchester United. And there is every reason to believe, I think, that by the end of this season, Amorim's position will be a lot stronger than maybe it seemed like it might have done that night in Grimsby.
Which is humanly remarkable in its own right. We're going to talk about Liverpool, though. Aura gone, invincibility gone, mortal again. Problems, as we've said, all over the field. New players, old iconic leaders also suddenly looking dead-eyed on the field. Team honestly seemed like a super band, one of those super bands who sound amazing in their individual components, but like make awful music. There's a band Super Heavy. I think it was Mick Jagger, Joss Stone. There was a Marley in there, Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics. They even had the guy from Slumdog Millionaire in there. I think they made like 2 songs and just stopped. It's kind of where Liverpool are at the moment. 4 straight losses. Unbelievable. That first loss at Anfield in 20 games. First loss to United in 10 campaigns. 4th place. Just 4 points off Arsenal, though, which we'll get back to. But they're so bad compared to how we imagined they would be when they were just snapping up massive player after massive player over the summer. There were moments I almost felt sorry for them, Raw. And I'll just add in ... almost. The XG you mentioned in this game, Liverpool 3.20. Manchester United just 1.34. So where are you emotionally, rationally? Are you like 4 losses? This is a crisis. Or you're like, look, if we put the majority of our chances away, the story would have been very different in this game.
Yeah, it's hard as a fan not to watch them hit the post 3 times and think we were a bit unlucky there. I think that is a legitimate thing to think. And I listening to Arne Slot say, it doesn't take much for our results to turn, I think is broadly true. If you look at not just the fact that Gakpo misses that header yesterday, hits the post deliberately twice, by accident once, Isak misses a chance, that Salah misses that chance. There are lots of opportunities for Liverpool to score. Similarly at Chelsea, if Andy Robertson is half a second quicker getting back, then Estevao doesn't score the winner. They get a perfectly admirable point at Stamford Bridge. Same at Crystal Palace, who were the form team in Europe until Everton obviously undermined their confidence, Rog.
Meat grinder Everton.
Went up to the Hill Dickinson meat grinder, the big dick meat grinder. Don't know if that's a nice image, sorry. But you can I think legitimately make the case that these are fine margins, that Liverpool are not playing well, and yet against Manchester United, against Chelsea, against Crystal Palace, all of them, not League 2 teams. In another world, it's perfect. In an alternate reality where you are underwater and there's whale song playing, it's perfectly possible to imagine that those results turn out very differently. I think the flip side to that is the one that I find more convincing, which is that you could say just the same about all the games that Liverpool won, that, if Hannibal Mejbri doesn't bafflingly handball the ball in the area in the 95th minute against Burnley, Liverpool don't win that. If the ball doesn't happen to ricochet out to Federico Chiesa against Bournemouth, they don't win that. Liverpool have been playing poorly all season. And what you're seeing now is that if you, as a major team, if you kind of trust 2 fine margins, that sometimes that will go in your favour and sometimes it won't. And it's weird. It's a bit weird, maybe, that they won 5 or 6 games on the bounce and then they've lost 4 on the bounce. It's strange that it's been so kind of black and white. But the overall impression is that if Liverpool had got a draw yesterday, if they'd taken a point from Palace or from Chelsea, that would have been excusing a poor performance. And the issue is not the results, it's the performance that leads to them or makes them possible. That's the issue.
So, ultimately, the last 4 games have made you reconsider, almost relitigate exactly what happened in the first 5 games, completely cast it in a different light. And you can't be hypothetical about history. We talk about this all the time on this show, that if the plot against Hitler had worked, would the war have ended quicker? We just don't know. Same thing here. Terrible analogy, Rog. Which means let's move on to what now for Liverpool, who ran away with the title last season. We have to remind ourselves this. They spent all that cash this summer. I'm shocked / fascinated by just the number of Liverpool fans not a huge amount, but they're starting already. You can see it on posts. Who are starting to crackle full-blown doubts of Slot, which is just amazing to me. That last season actually was Klopp's title. Looking at a number of challenges, it is remarkable how quickly we flip emotionally in football. Yes, there's challenges on the field in every department. Yes, the creating the new culture, fusing the new players is taking a lot of time. Kirkes seems lost. Frimpong and Wirtz have been benched. We have an Ekitike and Isak starter problem. Salah seems no slower, but mentally unruthless, unclinical. So what now for Slot, Raw? He was very honest. He admitted post-game it is going to be a true challenge. Brentford, Villa, Crystal Palace, Manchester City next. What has to happen and in what order?
I think the first thing that Slot maybe has to consider is whether he sticks or twists, effectively. What he's been trying to do...
Stick or twist. Stick or twist.
Rude or Dutch. So I've been... You mentioned Kirkes, and I think that's quite an interesting one, because I've been struck by how quickly he's moved Kirkes into the team. I would have thought, going into the season, that given all the change, all of the churn at Liverpool, that you say, do you know what, we kind of need the back four to be familiar. So we're going to do Robertson, Van Dijk, Konate, Bradley, when he's fit. That's the back four. We'll build from there, and we will allow Milos Kirkes time to grow into the team. And Slot's not done that. Of all the players he's kind of stuck with the most, Kirkes is the one who's just been there, despite the fact that Robertson has been Liverpool's left back for 7-8 years. He's been one of the best left backs the club's ever had. He just seems to have decided, actually, do you know what, Robertson is gone, Kirkes is in. So there's part of me that thinks, I can only answer this irrationally, Rog. There's part of me that thinks, stop trying to change stuff. Go back to what you know works and build from there. So do a back four that you recognise. Do a midfield three, not a midfield two. Szoboszlai, Gravenberch. Please not Alexis McAllister. Just let Alexis McAllister rest. Put Jones in there. Put Wirtz in there if you think he can play slightly deeper. I'm sure he could. And then do Gakpo, striker, Salah. 4-3-3. You know it worked. Get back to what worked for Liverpool last season.
Bring Darwin back.
Bring Darwin back. I think the reason that Slot won't do that is the same reason he changed, which was that I think that in the second half of last season, Slot looked at Liverpool and thought, we are winning games very narrowly. The opposition understand how to play us. We are winning it through individual talent, through moments of inspiration, through Mohamed Salah's incredible form. At some point, our luck is going to run out. We need to change, which is what explains the massive spend in the summer. So I think much more likely is that Slot says, all right, we need to change more. That's the issue here. I'd be quite happy, not quite happy, I would be happier losing games if it was with Florian Wirtz as the number 10, Isak up front with Ekitike, Salah maybe standing, on the right wing, involved in some way because it's Mohamed Salah. But you were effectively saying this is what we're going to be in a year's time, and we're learning that now. At the moment, what you have is kind of neither of those things, and it's not working. So to me, and I'm not a manager, and I don't like telling managers what I think they should do, because I'm not qualified to say that, Slot needs to choose. Either commit to the refashioning of Liverpool or dial it back and start again. I think doing this thing where you're kind of doing kind of half and half, it very obviously isn't working because the team isn't working. It's not the results, it's the fact that the team is not performing as they should. They don't look coherent. If you're going to lean into it, do it properly. Put Florian Wirtz back on the pitch. He's your future. Give him his chance. If not, you kind of have to go back to what you know worked for you last year and build from there.
Jurgen Klopp picked an incredible week to tape that podcast. Is it Diary of a CEO? Which came out this morning, the worst possible time for just a counter narrative to be out there in the media stream as Liverpool are floundering. And I want to say, as someone who, quite honestly, for me, the only way this could be going better right now is if Big Ange was announced as the next Liverpool manager. At the same time, I'd say this, the season is still so bloody early. 4 points is a nothing. We've already seen that. There is so much more football to come, and just as Liverpool should not have been, it was retrospectively a mistake to crown them champions after 5 games. Should not be written off now. But to the tippity top of the table, Fulham 0, Arsenal Football Club 1. First leg of this weekend's Kroenke Shad Khan doubleheader. Rams played and beat the Jaguars at Wembley yesterday. But Kroenke's Arsenal have been winning fugly in a season at the same time that has been one that Arsenal fans' dreams are made of. Your Premier League leaders rumbled in. They lost just once in their last 13 games. Yes, Martin Ødegaard suffered a medial collateral ligament injury, not expected to return until after the November international break, which is heartbreaking for a player that's really suffered with injuries recently. But this team has such depth in the squad, so many options, and such an identity. One really built on pragmatism, efficiency, being hard to score on. It's like muscle and guile, assertion as craft. And this was the truth for this game. It was really a mechanical performance, one absent of true spark, true joy outside of Bukayo Saka. Arsenal, that free-flowing football that made them such a neutral's joy in the second phase of the Arteta era. It's like they've attempted to stamp out all vulnerability raw. Lots of scrutiny on the focus of Gyökeres. Sweden in all kinds of qualifying hurt for the World Cup, and here is ninth straight game for club or country. It all comes without a goal. We're almost in a strange place with him. There's a backlash to the backlash about him. A lot of analysts starting to say, I like the work rate, I like the runs. Where are you, despite his goallessness, for the $74 million man who didn't, to his credit, have a full pre-season, but he was brought to win and win now.
And he was brought to score goals, and he was brought to score goals in games like Fulham away, where it is tough because Fulham are good, and you don't get that many chances, and you kind of have to grind it out. That's where having what we used to call a fox in the box sort of striker, someone with this ridiculous goal record, that's where it was meant to make the difference. I think the reason there's a backlash to the backlash is because Arsenal are winning. I think ultimately it is defined by results. The conversation is led by the idea that if the team is winning, then whatever he's doing must be working. It is perfectly possible that Victor Gyökeres could be playing exactly the same way with exactly the same goal return, but Arsenal were shipping goals, just giving away. If they'd given away two decent chances to Fulham put them away, and then suddenly Gyökeres is a problem. I think Arteta would probably want him to be scoring more goals, if I'm completely honest. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to say. A little bit of that will be teething problems, getting used to the new team, the team learning to play with an out-and-out 9 in a way that they haven't previously. But at the same time, he was brought as plug and play. That's why they went for him and not for Šeško. They looked at Šeško and thought, maybe his ceiling's higher, he's younger, maybe in 5 years' time we regret this, but we want a striker who is ready to go now. And I'd say, in all honesty, I think whether Gyökeres has fulfilled that remit yet, it's kind of tricky to say.
Yeah, by the way, you mentioned Fulham, if they'd scored. They were very feisty in this, and they counted well with Jimenez and Wilson. But the incredible part of Arsenal's play is the back line. They've conceded just 3 times in the league as it stands. Kept, 5 clean sheets in 8 games? They are just effective. So bloody effective, and mentality monsters in their own grim, kind of relentless way with set pieces. So it was 58th minute off their 8th corner of the game. Saka pinpoint cross, Gabriel flick on, Trossard back post smashing home from close range. 7th goal scored from a corner this season. Job done. The fans graciously able to welcome Emile Smith-Rowe back onto the field, and also went back to the top of the table. 10 games in. As I said, just 3 goals conceded, which is an Arsenal record this deep. And incredibly, I think it's just 1 from open play. But they are almost the exact opposite of Manchester City. Trossard, unbelievably, I think their 10th Premier League goal scorer of the season, spreading no goals around. But their big striker, their Haaland, has not really found the goals yet. So we ask ourselves, is this different to the last 3 seasons? To me, it is. The injuries are the same, but the depth of the squad is a difference. The starters and the finishers of Arteta are magical, mentally tough. Yes, the memory-making quality of the football is truly diminished, but this is the kind of game Arsenal would have raw and did actually drop points in last year. Are we in a stage of Arsenal this season where the results are all that matters and all we should be judging them on?
Yeah, I think in that sense, Arsenal are the zeitgeist Premier League team. They've worked out the 2 key ingredients to succeed in the Premier League. One is you need lots of players to throw into the meat grinder because they will get injured. There are so many games that fatigue will set in and the muscles will start to go. And the other is they've worked out that, in fact, they've led the way in this much more direct, much more set-piece style that is now defining the Premier League. They are the team that feel like they caught onto both of those waves, either earliest or earlier than most, And so they're well equipped to kind of go one better than they have in the previous 3 seasons and win the league this year. The 2 question marks, I guess, are, does there come a point where the set pieces dry up as a source of goals at some point? Do you need...
That's fascinating, because they did last season. They did last season.
They stopped scoring last year from set pieces relatively late on. And by that stage, the title had kind of gone, so it wasn't such a big deal. But they need that to happen, because that's their way out of those kind of grinding 0-0 draws, is to score a goal from a set piece. And that's perfectly valid. It's perfectly legitimate. There's no judgment. You're relying on that working. And the other one they have no control over, and that's, does Erling Haaland keep scoring goals? That's the other question that Arsenal have to answer. It feels like what you have now is a title race between 2 distinct models. On the one hand, you've got this squad that's built with this incredible depth to withstand the Premier League's kind of war of attrition. And on the other, you just have Dolph Lundgren in Universal Soldier.
God, is that what this season has been reduced to? It's like the Lilliputians of Arsenal trying to keep the giant down, strapped down.
Except that everybody involved is a giant.
From wonder to wow. Nottingham Forest 0. Oh, Chelsea 3. Farewell, Ange Postecoglu. Before this game, we knew he was on the brink, a bit like MTV. That redemptive arc we wished upon him when he arrived at Forest, not his to be. No wins in 7 games before this one. I mean, God, Forest, we'll talk about it, plummeted from like dream-filled European contenders to just a meme stock in the blink of an eye. Here he played Chelsea, a team he'd never beaten, which he felt, was a bit foreshadowing. Chelsea, yes, shorn of the talents of Cole Palmer for at least another 6 weeks. But before the game, God bless Ange, tried to get the battle fever on. He talked before the game so defiantly, actually hurt. I found it almost awkward. I'm a manager who, if you give me time, story always ends the same. At my previous clubs, it always ends with me and a trophy. Listening to him, it was like watching a bear be baited. I found it really difficult. Dropped Chris Wood, brought back a Wanye, City ground bellowed, Morgan Gibbs-White tried to lead, chance after chance, front foot, but the game then settled into a pattern of kind of reckless buccaneering, casual possession. 2 goals in 3 second-half minutes for Chelsea changed it, and ultimately the fate of Andrews sealed. 2 goals in 3 second-half minutes, Neto deliriously at the heart of both of them, creator and then finisher. Q Forest fans, good energy, just flipping immediately into like an angst-filled fury. The cameras zoomed onto Marinakis in the stands. He looked like he wanted to burn his manager with the heat emitting from his eyeballs, but then he left his seat after what was in the 10th set-piece goal conceded under Big Ange. They had Neto just dancing in front of the Forest fans. It was ugly, ugly stuff. At the Okolos, wrote in the MIB Discord, Marinakis left after 20 minutes of the second half in a home game. What an owner. At Eula Kev wrote, not seeing Marinakis in his seat is terrifying. It's like seeing the broken electric T-Rex gates in Jurassic Park. Raw, we'll get back to it in one moment, the Forest story. I do want to talk about Chelsea for 1 second. Again, they lost the XG. They won 3-0, but 2.42 to Forest, 1.75 to Chelsea Football Club. They managed to keep up their record of getting another red card. It was Gusto who got his 5th Chelsea player to see red in their last 6 games, but they don't care. Competent away win, up to 6, point off 4th. Todd Burley is $417 million Dodgers back in the World Series. 1 series win away from ending Major League Baseball's 24-year streak without a repeat champion. He's built another business model there that no one else can touch or match, that kind of makes no sense to conventional thinkers and kind of repulses them, but it's winning. And by the way, over here they talk about how it's, quote, destroying baseball in the process. Chelsea Football Club, discuss.
Yeah, I don't know whether I'd go quite as far as to say that Chelsea are destroying football, but they've definitely spotted loopholes. And is it working, Rog? That, I suppose, is the one question. So, yes, great result for Chelsea. Probably need to stop players getting sent off. Unquestionably, like a positive time for the club. World champions. I think they're paying the price for that, unfortunately, in terms of all the injuries they've sustained.
It's like seeing the broken electric T-Rex gates in Jurassic Park. And so it was, Raw. Ange Postecoglu, it was hard to watch at the end, watching him walk out to the centre of the field completely alone. And within 19 minutes, word came out he'd been sacked. first ever Nottingham Forest manager to fail to get a win in their first 8 games in charge. TNT Sports reported the awful story that he addressed his players in a home dressing room post-game, was then summoned to a meeting with poor former Arsenal director of football now at Forest Edu in a nearby corridor, and then he left for the parking lot. There's a chant roar, you're getting sacked in the morning. Do we need to update it to you're getting sacked within 19 minutes of the final whistle now?
You're getting sacked before the press conference. Do you think there's ever been a good meeting held in a corridor? Do you think if someone comes up to you and says, I want to have a meeting with you, it's in this corridor? Do you think that ends well?
Yeah, quick word.
Yeah, it felt really poignant. Funny if I was at Burnley on Saturday for Burnley's win against Leeds, and in the press room, obviously got the big TVs on showing the Forest game, and at the same time as TNT were flashing up, sort of news breaking, Postecoglu sacked, they were showing footage of him on the pitch applauding the fans, and it was obviously. I said to someone, "Is that happening live? Has he been sacked while he's outside on the pitch?" And they went, "No. They're just showing it again. It happened a few minutes ago." But the fact that it was possible that they might have been showing it live, that he might have been sacked, he was sacked while fans were still in the stadium.
Yeah,
is extraordinary.
A huge hook came on while he was clapping them from the centre circle and just yanked him off.
Is he the first manager ever to beat the traffic?
So you're saying it was considerate of them to fire him so quickly?
So in a way, yeah, they've done him a favour. Look, Ange, we don't want you to be manager anymore, but if it's any help, we kind of want you to get home quickly. That's nice.
Yeah, it is fair. I mean, he's a record holder, Ange, but not in a good way. Shortest tenure of any permanent manager. I think you call him Ange Postecoglu as the Bob Bradley of Ange Postecoglu's now. By the way, Bob Bradley's 85 days is a towering achievement compared to Ange. We will not see Ange again in the Premier League. He's become just, almost one of the most surreal careers I've seen in the Premier League. You remember those first 10 games? Just unbelievable, peerless dream football. The plummet, the fall. Still, the exclamation point Europa League win. That last game triumph when, again, it felt like he was right. We thought the always second season proclamation come true. It was about confidence and self-belief. But my God, to turn up here, the DOA failure, 39 days, no wins in 8, 6 defeats, 18 goals shipped, scoring 7 times, frailties both end of the field. And then this raw, the 19 minutes to the final whistle, cruel, incredibly cruel. Like, doing that is classless to a large degree. I mean, I understand being a god of anger. I understand the need to vent and express fury and pin it on Ange. But you've got to ask, seriously, who would want to go there after that, seeing their predecessor humiliated like that? I mean, the answer's Sean Dyche now. We know he's been announced. Well, we are podcasting. But the incredible thing about this Nottingham Forest freefall is how self-inflicted it all was. Marinakis and now Edu beside him. Selecting Ange. It's like one of those rom-coms, the how to lose a guy in 10 days, how to destroy your club in 39 days. Firing Nuno, successful, charismatic, popular, bringing in the polar opposite man to the defensive counter-attacking style. Not firing him during the international break when the new guy could have had a couple of weeks to get his feet under him. All I say is winning football cultures are hard enough, fragile enough, with alignment in good times, leadership, systems, recruitment, scouting, management, tactics, squad depth. You throw in clearly like a blind ego on top of it all. The self-sabotagingly impossible nature of it all is what's cruelest.
Yeah, I think you take it even further back, Rog. You take it back to the fact that the circumstances of Nuno sacking in the first place. They hadn't started the season brilliantly, but Nuno had taken them into Europe. Last season obviously ended a little bit of a disappointment. They wanted Champions League, nearly got Champions League, didn't quite make it. But they were back in Europe for the first time in a generation.
Amazing.
Nuno had done all of that. And then basically because of, I don't know, like a personality clash, effectively, or a kind of debate over, who sits where in the hierarchy, he leaves. That in itself felt rash and short-sighted. That's compounded by appointing Postecoglu, which any idiot, including this idiot, could have told you wouldn't work out well. That's obvious. And now they end up with Sean Dyche, who is a manager cast basically in the Nuno mould. It's been such a waste of time and Evangelos Marinakis' money, to be perfectly honest. That the one thing I think is really interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how it kind of plays out with the Forest fans over the next few months, few years. They have a lot to be thankful to Marinakis for, but there is a kind of flip. There is a converse to doing, to empowering an owner that much. and that's that you're completely at the mercy of his whims. And I'm not sure that's great for any club, and in this case for Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, it's an agony. It really, really is. Sean Dyche, former Forest youth player. I feel so terrible for the Forest fans. You've nailed it. One season you're soaring. The next you're living out just dystopian, Ange nightmare, goalless, dreadful, surreal football. I mean, it is. It's that Joni Mitchell song. Don't always seem to know you don't know what you got till it's gone. I mean, just cling on to those memories of last season when you dared to dream. Young listeners listening, moral of this story is don't dream. Do not have dreams, ever. That's the only moral lesson that you can take from this, right, Ro?
We got an email in one of the early editions of the Correspondent newsletter. Feel free to subscribe.
But Rory Smith's quite excellent, by the way. The loveliest read of my week. But go on.
Saying, from a Forest fan in the US, saying, I'm worried about being a Forest fan now. I think it might end unhappily. And I was really, really like, don't be ridiculous. Come on, people have been spoiled. You'll be fine. What's the worst that can happen? Forest will finish 10th. And now I'm a little bit, I sort of regret that answer, Rog, because Sean Dyche is a really good manager. He's perfectly competent. He will make Forest difficult to beat. He will make the City Ground a sort of intimidating proposition again. But he won't get them scoring loads of goals, I wouldn't have thought, despite the quality in that squad. Two managers now have looked at their summer business and thought, I don't really fancy playing these expensive signings that we've made, which suggests that maybe the signings themselves weren't that great. And Forest are in a lead where there aren't really any weak teams. That's not a happy place to be.
Remember, listeners, happiness is a trap. Game of the weekend, Crystal Palace 3, Bournemouth 3, come for Glasner versus Iraola, coveted brains in a bottle manager Classico. Oh, you've also got from an American POV, Chris Richards against Tyler Adams. Just that Sophie's choice for all US fans. Both games between these two last season were goalless, but these are very different creatures we got to watch. The alchemically regenerated Bournemouth, surging Palace, two of the stories of this still yet young season. This one, unironically, was like an advert for the best league in the world right now. From the jump, 7th minute, from a corner, ball flick, back post, 19-year-old French striker, Elie Kroupi, in his first start, replacing Evan Nielsen out for a calf injury, headed into an open net. I think it was Bournemouth's first goal from a corner this season. And the South Coast joy turned up to 11, 38th minute, when he did it again. Anton Semenyo, who Palace just could not live with in the first 45 minutes, charged down the left, slung one across the face of the goal, deflected into the path again. Kroupi slapped it past Dean Henderson, 2-0. Bournemouth, fleetingly, wondrously, top of the league in that moment. Kroupi joined the Cherries this summer, finished the season as I think the second tier in France's leading scorer with Lorient. Is he just another example of the Cherries' quite incredible crevice-searching boutique recruitment?
Yeah, it helps that Bill Foley, I think, is involved with Lorient, isn't he, the owner? There is a connection there between the clubs. But yeah, Bournemouth they've shown themselves masters of this. And it's again, this is really boring. It's not a great viral clip, Rog, but it's systems and processes. That's what leads to success. Richard Hughes, the director of football, leaves for Liverpool, but that doesn't mean that all of the institutional knowledge goes with him. Bournemouth have people who are working in that system, in that front office, effectively, who know where the players are. They have lists of replacements for any player they might lose. They have players that they want to sign because they think their profiles will fit that team, that football, that manager. They're a really well-run club, and really well-run clubs do things like potentially go top of the league despite only having a stadium that holds 11,000 people.
Technocracy. It's why we watch. It was astonishing to witness Palace conceding their first two first half goals of the season, trailing for the first time this season at the interval. But whenever Oliver Glasner's serving up at half-time, we all need a shot of it in our life because Palace came out reborn. Just that mentality that Glasner's inculcated is really unbowing. Second half we saw it, thanks in large part to three names, one man, Jean-Philippe Mateta, a gent who coming in this one, I mean, having best week ever, full international debut for France against Azerbaijan, age 28. Everyone laughed when he said it was his dream. Went and scored his first goal for his country 3 days later against Iceland. Best of times for this late-breaking career wonder. First half, Yes, he'd squandered at least 3 precious chances, but second half, he was really just so dominant. 64th minute, Daniel Munoz lashed one across the face of the Bournemouth goal. Mateta, when all French backboard steered at home. 69th minute, nice. Munoz to Mateta again. This time JPM sliding home full stretch, the back post, 2-2. I think 5th and 6th goals of the season for Mateta. He wasn't done. His movement, raw. His pace, the runs he makes, his sustained late-breaking potency in his career. It's incredible, honestly. I find it really inspirational. Even the way he treats corner flags like his own personal stress balls. Really striking story of the season.
Yeah, an incredible story. Does it? I think there were times when Palace thought, they kind of bought him as an option. He hadn't exactly torn up the Bundesliga previously. There were a lot of doubts over him initially when he first arrived. The way that he plays, the way that he causes defences so many problems. There's something quite old-fashioned about Mateta, I think, and that's his competitive edge. He's not the sort of striker that players are used to playing, and they find it incredibly difficult to deal with it.
Yeah, God bless. Bournemouth went ahead late. 89th minute, Ryan Christie, back from injury, punched home his first of the season. 3-2 Bournemouth, delirium again, but already overserved. This game, wobble right back to the bar for one last drink. 95th minute, Palace corner. Bafode Diakite fancied himself in a bit of grapple with Mark Gahey. Pair tumbled to the floor. VAR penalty, slightly questionable, but big picture morally, felt right to see Jean-Philippe Mateta pull up and just put it low to the right, 3-3. Snarling South London bear pit at Selhurst Park exploded. Mateta, God bless, in the 100th minute missed the goal gaping from close range. Somehow blazed over possibly his easiest chance of the whole game, Raw. But bloody hell, by the end of it, breathless. We all needed to change our pants, whether you were Palace, Cherry or neutral. It is incredible, Raw. I needed a cigarette and I don't even smoke. Chess, ballet, MMA, all on display. It's why we love football. It's why I love the Premier League. We are into October now, Raw. Is there enough sample size to say these are not just cuddly underdogs in like an early season heater that will burn off? These are legitimately excellent football teams and will be reckoned with all season.
Yeah, absolutely, Rog. There's no reason to believe that Bournemouth in particular will go away anytime soon. I suppose with Palace, you might question whether the run in Europe could cost them in terms of energy. But as a team, as a unit, as a kind of proposition, they are outstanding football teams, both of them. They're not to be taken lightly. They're not to be judged by historical standards. They are top 10 sides more than capable of getting into Europe in both cases. Palace are obviously already there. Bournemouth came close last year. And I think in Glasner and Iraola, they maybe have the 2 best performing managers in the country. And that is not a bad thing to have.
Pound for pound, there is no doubt. God bless Palace back in Europe this Thursday at a game, I hope, to be at. They play Arsenal on Sunday. I'll just say up the Palace and mean it. 2 North London, Tottenham 1, Aston Villa 2. Thomas Frank, stealthily positive start to his Spurs tenure, but the schedule at the same time we knew had been kind of kind. This game felt like the moment crap was about to get serious. Enter Unai Emery's rhythm-seeking Villa. Tottenham have enjoyed fast starts under Thomas Frank. It's what he does. And inside 5 minutes, they went 1-0 up. Arsenal, not the only team in North London who are good at the corners. A recycled corner scrapped by Kudus, thumped back by Polina to his defensive shield partner, Rodrigo Bentancur. 6-time Thomas Frank side has scored in the opening 5 minutes of a Premier League game. That's what he does. Spurs, though, scored too early. They dropped their guard. Villa scored off their only 2 shots on target, but they were both excellent. Morgan Rogers barely touched the ball, played a 1-2 off a defender, then just thrashed home from 25 yards, dipping the ball over Vicario. First goal in 20 games for Rogers. God bless. It became really mistake-filled fare for Spurs. Xavi Simons not effective. Teleno Udebert not really impacting play. But we knew none of the last 20 meetings between these 2 teams. This is incredible. It ended in the draw. We knew there'd be a winner. 78th minute. A stunning goal, Raw. Born of each moment of beauty being one-upped almost by the next. I think it was Matty Cash's initial ball. Stunning. Luca Digne's take. Even better. Buendia on as a substitute. Impact. Immediate. His finish was absolutely chef's kiss. But all of them upstaged, I think. By the way, Morgan Rogers got his bum out of the way of the shot.
Yeah, that's the key moment in the entire move. Removing the bum is a crucial skill set.
It's like watching Virgil van Dijk.
It was like watching Virgil, but that's true actually. An attacking Virgil van Dijk, maybe more
Bum the
effective.
ball. Bumming the ball. That's a DVD I'd buy. Bumming the ball with Virgil van Dijk. Sorry, keep going.
But it does feel as though kind of a statement result, not so much for Spurs, but for Villa, who had that difficult start to the season, who seemed to be kind of almost talking themselves into a crisis. And now all of a sudden, things look rosy again for Unai Emery. It's a reminder of why the club felt so confident, felt so full of belief just while he was there, because you have a manager who can do things like this.
I mean, 5 straight wins now for Unai Emery's Aston Villa. They are back. Spurs tried to summon a sharper edge. Colin Muani marked his Premier League debut by coming on and whiffing entirely with the goal at his mercy. They had a chance to go second here, but blew that chance. Incredibly, their problems at home, which began last season, continue under Frank. These statistics are amazing. They've won, I think, just 3 of their last 18, taking just 4 points at home this season. The one win was against Burnley, right? Incredibly, dropped a league-leading 19 points from winning positions at home. Home crap, home raw. How does that happen?
I don't know. It's an interesting thing, and as you say, it's so deep rooted now that you have to assume it's a pattern. It's not coincidence. Whether it's that they struggle to take the initiative in games and they're maybe best if they're reacting. Obviously, the tail end of last season was slightly odd. Ange would tell you, and he's now got time to, that they were prioritising the Europa League. I think Frank's made quite a curious start as Spurs manager. We are, as a podcast, pro Thomas Frank and the causes of Thomas Frank. Rog, everyone knows that. Their performances haven't been especially convincing at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. There's a little bit of kind of disgruntlement, I think, about the style.
They were booed off.
That's quite a lot of disgruntlement. To me, Spurs are kind of indicative of where the league is. I've got to admit that they are capable of being really good, of beating anyone that they play. They can go to Manchester City and win convincingly. But they're also in a division where everyone's quite evenly matched. You can say the same thing about lots and lots of teams. And if you look at the table as things stand, between Everton in 12th and Bournemouth in 3rd, there's 4 points. That's not very many. And I think Spurs are kind of caught in that they are good. They have got reason to believe, to hope that they might be able to, have a decent run in the Champions League, that they can take some famous victories, particularly on the road, I guess, at the moment, that they can challenge the true elite of the league on a game-by-game basis. But every week they're facing a team that's roughly as good as them, and that means things are going to be volatile.
Talking about 2 teams who were both roughly as good as us, whoever us is, in other games. Brighton 2, Newcastle 1. And amidst the perpetual youth revolution that burns bright on the south coast, 93-year-old Danny Welbeck is as reliable as Father Time. 34-year-old rang up 5 seasons at Brighton by delivering glory here. It's incredible. Needs 5 more goals to top the number he scored in his 20s, which is magical. 2 goals, both moments of true quality. The first, a delicate dink, composed finish, delivered the 3 magnificent points for Brighton. 3rd win of the campaign. Oddly, all have come against just the Champions League competitors. And I do want to mention now, Newcastle's goal, if you've not seen it, find it. Voltemada, just Shohei Ohtani could never, watching what he does. He let the ball across his body, flicks it into the bottom corner with the outside of his heel. It's like seeing a giant German transform himself essentially into Richard Flatley of the Lord of the Dance.
Michael Flatley.
Is that who he is? Michael? Well, either of the Flatley brothers. Is it 5 goals in 7 games now that he scored? I do think about narrative, Raw, and I think about reality in football because how we laughed this summer when Newcastle couldn't keep Alexander Isak, Doom, and then tried to sign essentially a tribe of replacements, Sheshko, Hugo Ekitike, Gyökeres, all coveted, none of them snared. Could it be they found the best of all?
He's been really good, Voltemada. He's an interesting player to watch. He's a bit different to basically anybody I can really think of. He's sort of quick because he covers a lot of ground without being quick. He's very good in the air, as you'd maybe expect, but also kind of not expect, as often players of that height aren't that good in the air. He's physical without being kind of powerful, and he's lent them a real edge. And obviously they've still got Johan Wissa to come back as another attacking option, but it does feel as though Voltemada slotted into that Newcastle team a little bit more easily than Gyökeres at Arsenal or Isak at Liverpool or even Šeško at Manchester United. He's made it look like if you get the right player in the right place, it can be kind of seamless.
Burnley 2, Leeds 0. The game you're at, God bless Burnley. Now beating both the teams who came up with them and have made the case. I've got to say, Leeds got a worrying trait of playing great against the big teams and then playing down against the ones that they kind of need to glean the points from. Here, 87-year-old Kyle Walker was instrumental in both games. Dude will not go gentle into that good night. That first cross that he delivered for Leslie Ugochukwu was stunning. As was the second goal that Burnley scored on a Walker-inspired counter, finished emphatically by Ugochukwu's teammates since his early teams, Ren, Loom, Chowner, who Hulk smashed the ball home for the backbreaker. Incredibly, this is the first time that young duo have been on the winning side together since beating Merinac in May 2022, when Desiree Doué and Matthias Tell were leading the line. Their journey since, wandering via Lazio and Chelsea to, of all places, Burnley. Raw, they are fascinating glimpses into the elite depth of stockpiling of talent that currently exists in our Premier League.
Well, the reason I went to Burnley Leeds was for the Observer to write a piece on the fact that none of the promoted sides this season look like they're about to just sort of disappear from the division without a fight. They all look like they're going to make a fist of it. None of them are in the bottom three. Sunderland are 7th, which is astonishing. Leeds have had positive results. I agree with you completely that they are good against the better teams and they're a little bit sort of slapdash against the teams they need to be beating. What I would say in defence of my sort of hometown club that I don't support is Leeds missed about 5 sitters. They really should have scored.
Oh, Brendan Aronson, God
2
bless
or
you, sir.
3 fairly simple goals, to be honest. Jack Harrison with a couple. Aronson had one. DCL was involved, I think, at one point. There were a few.
Favourite.
Jaden Bogle should have scored. There were a lot of chances that Leeds made. But Burnley do have class. They've got class, they've got grit, they've got experience. Udochukwu was outstanding at Old Trafford a few weeks ago, where I saw Burnley as well. Chown is a real kind of really explosive, kind of dynamic presence off the bench. The one that I think speaks volumes, though, is one you've not mentioned, Rog. Florentino Luis, the defensive midfielder, who for a long time was like the crown jewel of Benfica's academy, and now plays for Burnley. And that tells you everything you need to know about the level of the Premier League.
Sunderland 2, Wolves 0. You mentioned Sunderland, but we'll start with Wolves quickly. Winless remaining, clean sheetless. They are worse, honestly, than Jordan Hudson's boyfriend. Here, Sunderland rendered them toothless in the most delirious way. Black Cats are, you said this, 7th place, 4 wins in 8 games, sizzling. I love all the statistics. No side won more home points than Sunderland in the Premier League, 10 from a possible 12 at the Stadium of Light. Here's the best one. Sunderland have already bettered Southampton's total points tally from last campaign, and they played 30 games less. Testing fixtures at Chelsea and at home to Everton. Well, 3 points. And Arsenal away. I'd say away. The lads. West Ham and Brentford play tonight. Nuno Revenge Tour rolls on. First game at home. So we close with Manchester City 2, Everton 0. 2 words, we tried. In the Jack Grealish Memorial Derby, St. Jack, I hate this rule, not able to play against his parent club because of loan rules. But despite that, Everton arrived. Yes, they knew they hadn't won at City. This is incredible. 15 bloody years. But the Palace victory before the break and the great, incredible Jordan Pickford signing a 4-year contract at the club. He declared the dark days are over, which, God, I was like, oh my God, we feel dangerous, which is always a trap. And I, for one, I'm ready to be hurt again. Let history show in that first half. Everton so game. We silenced the Etihad. Ilian Dye. We put on Instagram some of his highlights from this game. It was amazing. It felt like he was on a one-man mission to show Manchester City that he should sign from them, which was a bit unnerving, to be candid. Kept setting up chances for Beto. God bless you, Beto. Beto just Betoed them. What else did we expect? We had the initiative. City rumbled. No Rodri for another couple of games. Kind of shot on sight, which was odd to watch also. City ultimately, I wrote pre-game that this match was about the philosopher's question that philosophers have agonised over for centuries. How many tiny shin pads does it take to stymie Erling Haaland? That normally precedes unfortunate events. Second half, 2 Haaland goals in 5 minutes put us to the sword. First, a dunk of a header. Second, rerouting a Savinho cutback. Incredible. Raw, these are real numbers. 23 strikes. 23 in 13 games for club and country. Also incredible, he scored City's last 7 goals. Scorer before him was Maxime Este, the Burnley defender who scored 2 own goals. Pep said after the game, lack of goals from all places is a concern. Haaland has netted, I think, 13 of City's 17 this season. I'm disappointed he didn't score 4 or 5, but chances from Savinho, Doku, Reinders, they have to score, they have to do it, otherwise we can't do what we want to do. Does it matter, Raw, that more City players are not scoring? I mean, ultimately, he came on our show, he said, what I do is score goals, that is my job. He's so bloody dominant. I don't like to be hyperbolic, but what he's doing is without parallel in human history.
Yeah, it feels like Guardiola's caught in quite an uneasy position for him, because he has this weapon that nobody can stop, that works every single time. And look, that's obviously a dangerous position to be in, like logically. Just what if Haaland gets injured? I think that will be Guardiola's main concern. Like, what happens if this guy is not there? But while he is there, it makes complete sense for the team to be built around him, to service him, to get the best out of him. Pep might not like that, but that is the most effective thing to do, I think. And the numbers he's putting up at the moment, you kind of just have to run with it, because I don't see there is no more effective way of staying in the title race. It sounds silly to say it, but I do genuinely believe at the moment, and you know, things change in the Premier League all the time, but it does look like you have these two paradigms of victory. One is Arsenal saying, if we have the most best players, we should be able to endure this season. And the other is Pep Guardiola saying, have you seen my large Norwegian?
It is. When my kids played basketball when they were like really young, and when you do, there's always at 11 someone who's gone through puberty and is 6'5" playing against 4'2" kids. And that's what it's like watching Haaland. He is that player. That obliteration, this statistic is mind-blowing. There's only been 3 instances of a player reaching double figures in the Premier League by the 8th game of the season. All 3 of them are Erling Haaland, and he just did it again, 25-26. God bless Everton. We are so admirable mentally, but we are so obviously flawed. We have no fullback on either side. We have no real striker, and I love Beto, but we battle on despite those obvious limitations, which is why I watch and I love it. I mean, that's going to be our way until January. By the way, Manchester City are also amazing. Donnarumma, 4 clean sheets in his 7 City games. Poor James Trafford. But with Donnarumma at the back and Haaland at the front, they remind me, not since the San Antonio Spurs of David Robinson and Tim Duncan has a team dominated and relied upon 2 big men more, and it is remarkable to watch. Everton fans, God bless, see the 2 men who tried to take over the club. That's our joy. John Textor facing a lawsuit that 97 million is owed to 2 investors. Most importantly, Josh Wonder, the 777 leader, came so close to taking over our team. Manu, at the time, I had people call me up who I consider to be the worst person in the world, call me up and said, Josh Wonder, no, he's the worst person in the world. He is the man who once brought stakes in 7 football clubs in 7 countries, tried to make Everton number 8, just been charged with wire fraud, security fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud in New York City, faces jail time. Essentially, it sounds like a Ponzi scheme. Surprise. All I'll say is no matter what happens this season, Raw, we're winners because of the dart road not taken in our hour of complete desperation and Godspeed. Let's have happier convo. We're closing from a letter from a GFOP. I love this. From Danny Jones in Kayenta, Arizona.
Dear Rog and Rory, I'm a Liverpool supporter. You have our commiserations. My wife and I decided to make the pilgrimage to Anfield to celebrate my birthday. Liverpool beat Manchester City 1-0. That doesn't sound right. On a second-half goal by Mo Salah. Also doesn't sound right. This must have been a long time ago. Little did we know at the time, but it would be Klopp's last Premier League win over Pep. After our first successful football trip, we decided to expand our European adventures by going on 5 more trips over the past 3 years. My wife has enjoyed seeing the most iconic sites such as the Milan Cathedral, the Colosseum, the Eiffel Tower, the Gran Via, and Michelangelo's David. The highlights of these trips for me were San Siro, the Olimpico, Parc de France, the Bernabeu, and the Artemio Franchi. My favourite league to watch is Serie B, the Italian second division. This is my kind of guy. I was watching a match a few years ago. During the pre-game build-up, the matchday commentator put out the challenge that any groundhopper worth his salt will one day in their life make it to the Stadio Pierluigi Penzo. We will be travelling to Venice in November to fulfil this mandate. Thanks so much to you both for planting the seed for my wife and I to become groundhoppers. Rog for his Visit Britain travel series, and Rory for his European Nights podcasts. My question is, what football ground that you have not visited yet would be at the top of your list to see a match at? Courage, Danny Jones.
Oh, what an incredible letter. Danny Jones. By the way, it's amazing the journeys, the memories that the football and our silly little suboptimal podcast have brought into your life. You have an incredible partner, by the way, Danny Jones. But Raw, you better travel than me, so have at it.
The most iconic one that I've never been to is the Azteca. That would be the big one that's right on the top of my list. I think more realistic, slightly closer to home. Two are in Spain, one's in Italy. Real Betis. I've never seen a game at Real Betis.
Yes.
And I would love to. I've been to Sevilla, but I've not been to Betis.
Oh, to see Real Betis play Sevilla would just be unbelievable.
Athletic Bilbao. I've been to Bilbao, as it's an amazing city. I've never seen a game at San Mamés, the new one, and I'd like to go there. And the other one's a little bit more left field, but the Luigi Ferraris, which is where Genoa and Sampdoria play in Genoa, which is one of those grounds that was on TV a lot as a kid. Just Sampdoria were really good, and it kind of has this. It's a very English-looking ground with a very Italian kind of aesthetic, and I really like that vibe. I've done all of the other major Italian grounds, I think, but I've never done Genoa, so that would be the other one. So Betis, Bilbao, Genoa.
God bless you. Are such what a life, Rory Smith is. For me, which stadium that I have not seen a game at would I most like to go to is an easy answer, and I'm about to go there. So it is Everton's new home, Hill Dickinson. That theatre of Big Dick Energy Dreams. I am putting that right next weekend. I'm going to watch Spurs stuff us from the South Stand, that steep-sided wonder. So the place after next week that I've always wanted to go to, and I actually think about it a lot, I dream about it a lot, it's La Bombonera, Boca Juniors, to see them play River Plate, watching that chocolate box bounce would be the stuff of life, honestly. And after the World Cup, to be candid, that is the dream for me, to go with all of my kids, take that time to go and drink all the Malbec, eat all the steak. I'll say that's the vision that keeps me going on the daily.
Yeah, the Bombonera is quite special. You will enjoy that, I would say. They're all, I've been to River as well, to the Monumental. That's really good. They're all worth visiting.
God bless. That was a pat on the head from Roar and a humble brag to close this podcast. I hope you feel better, Roar. I'm here to make you feel better. I'm used to defeat.
I'm working through my pain. It's quite cathartic talking about it.
I know, it's the only way, Bub. Get it out. Danny, send us your postal. We'll send you the coveted Men in Blazers patch. Keep sending your letters, your questions, your ravens for Rory and me. meninblazers@gmail.com. You can also hit us in Discord. We'll try and answer as many as we can. That is it for today. We're off to DC tomorrow. God bless. Then England on Wednesday. We're filming with Adam Wharton, which I can't wait for. Jordan Pickford and more. We'll be live, I hope, together, Raw, next week in the flesh in Liverpool. So huge thanks to you, Crown Prince of Harrogate.
I'll see you for European Nights, Rog.
God bless. This is Rog sending you big love. And let's not take a second of watching football together for granted. And courage.